2004, we got the graphic novel. 2010, we got a movie, a short animation, and a video game. Now, in 2023, Scott Pilgrim has gotten his own anime. Welcome to the Caffeinated Librarians, coming to you from Mayapack Public Library. Today we have a very special episode where we'll be taking a look at the highly anticipated Netflix anime Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. For those who are new and just tuning in, my name is Amanda, and I'm joined by my other co-hosts.
Hi, I'm Simona.
I'm Joe.
I'm Lewis.
Katie.
So for new time watchers, maybe of Scott Pilgrim, or even just us, we've definitely talked about Scott Pilgrim in the past. We run a movie club here for teens, and they have frequently requested Scott Pilgrim.
Good movie.
Fantastic movie. So for the viewers who are unaware of the Scott Pilgrim franchise, a quick synopsis is it revolves around a guy named Scott who's a deadbeat guy in a band who meets a mysterious girl named Ramona Flowers, and in order to date her, he must defeat her 7 deadly exes. That's a very, very short synopsis. I hope that gets you interested.
What this show proposes is a spoiler alert here, folks, because this is a decidedly different take on the bones of the Scott Pilgrim story. Is that what if Scott got to that first evil ex and seemingly just died?
So from this point forward, if you haven't seen the movie, this is a spoiler warning. Go see the movie, then watch the show, then come back and tell us your thoughts. With that said, as Joe mentioned, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is a story of what if Scott died before he ever defeated any of Ramona's 7 deadly exes, which was quite a twist. So let's get into it.
I mean, I loved it. I've sort of been immersing myself in it. I read all the comics leading up to this episode as I was watching the show, and it's just, I don't know, I feel like this was a lot closer to kind of the style of the comics than the movie was. I love the movie, don't get me wrong, but that is so breakneck, just like boom, 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 boom. You don't really get time to sit in a lot of it, and like part of what I loved about the comics is like, oh man, this must be devastating if you lived in Toronto and were like part of an indie rock scene, because it's just like, damn, this is so like very specific and just feels very accurate. It feels lived in a lot of ways. And this, I think, got some of that. I think it got some of that juice going, and it was just nice to have like quieter, slower, character-driven moments. And yeah, I love the end too. It's funny as hell. Love having the cast of the movie back. All right. That's my intro ramble. Somebody else.
Speaking of the cast, so I also very much enjoy the movie, and I think you articulated it very well. The movie is very busy, but not in a bad way necessarily, but it is very busy. This one is not as busy, and I think I liked that more, actually. But the cast, I mean, what a superstar cast. And the fact that they all came back for this, I think, really speaks to how much I imagine they enjoyed working on the movie. Because, like, they're all, a lot of them are superstars now.
I was like, whoa, Chris Evans and Brie Larson both came back for this?
Yeah, right? Like, that's pretty impressive. And they've all had very good careers since the movie aired. So that was kind of my initial reaction, just to how cool it was that they all came back, and how much fun they must have had doing it.
And the soundtrack was handled by Anamanaguchi, who did the soundtrack for the video game that came out back when the movie came out.
Very famous band that's known for this kind of like, I forget the exact name of the sound.
Chiptune, right?
Chiptune, which is like that little 8-bit sound, stuff like that. They've even worked across the seas with, like, Hatsune Miku in Japan. There's a whole song they wrote just for her. That was fantastic. Fantastic, just all around. They did all the music, I think. I think they did the Karayanagi twins music in the movie.
Yeah.
As well.
I mean, if we're going to start with the music, I mean, I think every song was just awesome. Like I was really into that opening song in the credits, and the whatever song was just
My United States of whatever.
yeah. It was just everything was so catchy. I was like, this is so much fun. Like it was just fun, you know. I really enjoyed the music.
There's so Scott Pilgrim, the character, is named after a song by a '90s indie band called Plumtree. The song's just called Scott Pilgrim,
Nice.
and they play it a few times on the show. One time, Sex Bomb plays it, and they just use the Plumtree recording at the end. But it's the "I've liked you for 1,000 years, 1,000 years."
Nice.
Love it.
My turn? Okay. Well, I have a different opinion on this. I didn't see the movie. I had no interest in seeing the movie when it was released, and even subsequently years later. And watching this, I'm sorry, Amanda. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry, Lewis. But it was a slog to get through. I wasn't really emotionally invested in anything. And the music, yes, I will give it. The music was very catchy, but I am not an indie person at all. I know this about myself, and it was.
So, it's funny because not funny. So interestingly enough, like Scott Pilgrim has been one of those fandoms that even after the movie came out, because the movie was considered like I think a flop,
Yeah.
a box office flop, despite the cult fall of fandom that follows behind it. Scott Pilgrim has, as a fandom, been relatively kind of quiet behind the scenes. It's been like a
I mean, there
quiet
hasn't
fan-
been much since
there
2010.
hasn't been much, but like, you know, when it came to like the movie, everyone like rushed to see it, even though critics were like, "Oh, this movie was great." It was still one of those things where it's like you could talk to somebody and bring up Scott Pilgrim and they'd be, "Oh yeah, I love Scott Pilgrim," but then they'll never go into it.
Yeah.
And so it's been kind of just one of those. So like you kind of forget that sometimes it's in the background until like something big comes out. Like the anime now is here. And so now we can all go back and relive like the movie. There were a lot of things that if you've just watched the movie, I personally believe that in order to fully appreciate Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, reading the comics, it's a six literally book series. It's very short in comparison to most series. Would really benefit a lot of watchers. A lot of people are just like, just watch the movie. It's like, yeah, you can watch the movie for like just basic context. But to understand some of the characters and like what this has really done to some of the characters regarding their comic books versions of them, you get to see a lot more new emotions, a lot more new character building. Like Knives, I think me and Joe talked before the show was about, you know, the Knives Chow is, you know, a cute little high school girl believing she's dating a boy who likes her in a band, and
Who is much too old for her
Who is
and
much
should
too-
not be doing this.
bad, and everyone reminds Scott daily of that mistake.
That very illegal
Mistake.
Although they haven't done anything.
They've only held hands
They've only
once
held hands. Still
on a
cringy.
bus.
But are they technically dating? Because
So to
isn't
her,
that what
Yeah.
their
they're
friend-
dating.
No, they're
Yeah,
dating.
They're dating.
Oh, okay.
Scott Pilgrim is dating a high schooler. That is
Okay.
the
Movie
first
star?
line of the novel, first line of the movie. I think
Because
the
I thought
In
it was
Toronto,
more.
Canada, Scott Pilgrim was dating a
I
high
know,
school.
but it's like it's almost like it's said. But even like when he's talking to his friends about it, he's almost like, "But am I really?" It's almost like he himself doesn't really know how to define
Exactly. I think he's trying to rationalize the fact that he's
Yeah.
dating a high schooler.
Yeah.
Yeah. But his breakup with Knives, when Knives, you know, comes to that, she takes a very long, like it devastates her because she believed that what they had was something special.
Forever.
Forever.
Which is kind of why I liked the way this series handled that, because it was less about him, and it was more about like her finding herself.
Which
Yeah.
is what the comics do with Knives. The comic
Yeah.
takes a pretty good time
Oh
getting
yeah.
Knives to learn
She
to move
she keeps
on.
hanging out with them in the
Yeah.
comics. Like she starts dating Neil for a little bit and like kind of just floats around the friend group. And
But like her in the comics trying to get over like Scott was her own journey, and she ends up becoming better for it and learning to move on.
Yeah, I'd say that was one thing that the movie probably doesn't do very well.
The movie did not touch on knives.
Because they don't really bring that in much. But I thought other than that, I thought you really could watch the movie and get the gist of who these characters are.
Yeah.
And then watch this show and be pretty cool with it. I think for me, the one that really was explored more was young Neil. Because, like, in the movie, he doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
But in this, he has such a big part in it, and he's hilarious.
Can we talk about his paralysis demon?
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't really his
I
paralysis
saw my sleep
demon, it was
paralysis
just-
demon.
I how blasé he is about it. I mean, he doesn't really think much. That's the funny part. Was like, I woke up my paralysis, and it just didn't go. And then like and I was like, maybe it's also because I see things in my room, so I would be like, oh, and go back to sleep, and then like full novel written up for him. And one of the funniest moments I will say though is the whole shooting of the movie and
The
the
meta
the
commentary.
frustration
Oh my
of the
God.
director, especially. Can we talk about the vegan dude? Because I felt
Todd Ingram.
I would love to talk about Todd.
Because I feel bad about him and Wallace. Wallace is kind of a. I mean, I like.
I love Wallace.
But that's why we love him.
But it's so true because he strings Todd Vegan along, and I felt so bad for him.
But at the same
No,
time,
question, does he string him along?
I don't
Because he
think
says
he's
to
just no
Todd,
emotion.
he says
It's
to
an
Todd,
on-set
hey,
fling.
this is a, once production is done, this is over.
He tells him what the rule is, but it's Todd. So Todd in the comics,
Wow.
which they don't really portray in the movie because as a movie goes and you're trying to adapt a whole series into one movie, you have to cut a lot of details out. They make Todd in the movie seem like such a he's really confident in himself. He's got vegan powers. He's really dope. He's cool. He's dating one of the biggest celebrities in the world. But in fact, he's kind of a soft boy. He's very emotional. In the comics, it shows even more how much more of an emotional person he kind of is. He's very susceptible to.
He's a massive cheater in the comics,
He's a massive
too.
cheater. He cheats on Envy with the drummer of their band, who actually is the one who knocks the highlights out of Knives' hair. Not Todd in the movie. She actually punches her and stuff like that.
So I don't feel too bad for him then. Okay.
Todd is 100%, but at the same time, you understand. I think that what Scott Pilgrim takes off does really well is Scott Pilgrim's whole comic series and the movie is all about Scott and his whole self journey of trying to be a better person because he is just hands down not a very good person. Is about Ramona and the damage she did and how she has to confront.
Yeah.
I says Todd, she clearly hurt Todd, and now look at him.
Yeah.
He's so emotional. He's also trying to have this persona of being someone who clearly is just better than her, trying to be better than her in every way. Dating someone who's an upgrade compared to Ramona, having status, but inside he's clearly just wants to be loved is the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, he punched a hole in the moon for her.
That absolutely happened.
This is changing it, but I gotta say, Lucas and Roxy, they're not even evil. They're just annoyed.
Yeah.
Roxy was such an interesting, she had big presence in the comics as well. She hangs out with Ramona after everything. That's just, they become besties again. Which was nice
They
to
kinda
see
did
and
that in
take
this,
off.
too.
Which
Yeah.
was nice to see and take
No,
off that they had.
I loved how they handled her in this. I thought I think that's the best portrayal of Roxy we've gotten across
So
any of
good.
this.
Roxy was such a cute character, which actually, the fight that results in the movie that you see between Roxy and her weakness being under her knees was in the comics actually helped Scott defeat Envy.
Yes. The fight between her and Ramona when they're going through all of the different movies. Oh my God.
It's so good.
And I lost my mind after she makes out with Kim and then just walks away singing the hamster dance song.
Gotta love that.
And it is interesting because this like you said, the movie is about Scott. And while you said this series was about Ramona, and I think we should talk about Ramona, but maybe we'll save her to the end. It wasn't even just about her; it was about the evil exes also. I mean,
Yeah.
and kind of their redemption and stuff like that.
Kind of redemption, because
Yeah.
Gideon is still kind of a jerk.
Well, yeah,
even though I love him.
he did not get redeemed whatsoever.
I love just Matthew Patel becoming like the most powerful man in the world.
He was gonna be the most powerful ex. Then again, he can summon hipster demon chicks and shoot fireballs.
Yeah.
Lucas Lee over here with just his like skateboard flips. First off, the ninja battle in the sky with Lucas Lee and the skateboard.
Oh, sick. I love Lucas Lee.
Yeah,
he's just a chill guy.
Yeah.
I love that he played Scott in the movie.
Yeah, right. And
I'm
he's
Scott
like,
Pilgrim.
did you know this movie was about me? She's like, yeah, of course. He's like,
Which I'm glad we got to see his house, because in the comics, Scott fights Todd in Lucas's house.
I really liked the
Which is
idea that if a 20-something unemployed guy in Toronto got killed in some weird feud, there'd be like massive media properties immediately going into production about him.
He did disappear through a portal, so that is, that's pretty cool.
No, he had the coin. I love how the amount of coins he got was actually just like 3.
yeah, right.
Versus everybody else who got like exponentially larger.
I love that they had an open casket for the coins.
Yeah.
The entire funeral episode, I was just cackling because I was like, they're really going for it, huh? He's just dead.
Yeah.
Which we later find out he's not dead, but
he's just hanging out with his
I
friends.
also-
Who knew that the villain was gonna be himself?
I really liked Will Forte
Oh, he
as old
great.
Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really go wrong with Will Forte in anything.
He was outstanding.
Was it just me, or were they playing with the whole Super Saiyan thing with old
Oh,
Scott?
definitely, yeah.
Okay,
There
so
was
that
a
wasn't
lot-
just me where I was like, this looks like he's leveling up. Where like
There's
his
a
hair
lot
is-
of anime video game references that Scott Pilgrim plays off of. I know me and Scott. Scott. Whoa.
If
Me
I'm
and Joe
if I'm
noticed-
anyone, I want to be young Neil.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You gotta be more like not phased.
I love when they're at the theater and he's like, "Oh, written by old young Neil. I wonder if there's any relation."
How does he make it through life? Like that's one of the
Neil
things.
is like an enigma.
How does he survive? I don't know.
His video game skills, clearly.
Yeah.
He'd be like one of those streamer guys who
Just games.
he does like speed runs constantly, and he beats everyone's record, and so we all wait with bated breath to see what he does next. Now he's a director. No, but the anime references like are really big. We noticed like End of Ava, like the Evangelion franchise. You can see in the background is like Scott's head in like a red landscape with I think him on the beach, or I believe I forget who's on the beach, but it's a good reference to kind of tie in the fact that this is an alternate timeline of things. The Super Saiyan powering up will always be something you'll see in it because we all want to emulate.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even his
Yeah.
outfit choice looks like old Ryu from like Street Fighter.
The virtual reality machine was just a virtual boy. Nintendo's horrible failed VR thing.
Yeah, we got that.
I love that the Katayanagi twins are just bros. With Scott in the future, they have a band, a cool weird indie synth band.
Still living with Wallace.
Still living with Wallace in a much better, they don't have to share the same bed anymore.
No.
Oh, man.
I love that Scott had no idea that Wallace's husband, that he was married, and that he, was married to someone who works at Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Scott is so oblivious to the world around
They
him.
get
because
all the
there's nothing
games for free.
Yeah.
Do the comics explain why future Toronto is destroyed?
There is
is
no future Toronto. So Scott Pilgrim.
So
the
what
comics,
city are they in?
Toronto.
They're in Toronto. They don't go to the future in the comics.
Okay.
They're in
Yeah.
Toronto until Scott leaves for a little bit of time and then comes back.
Yeah. He goes to Vancouver, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's all Canada.
All right, because it didn't didn't bother me, but I was just kind of curious why it's
I-
destroyed in the future.
I did love that Ramona is just in Death Stranding in the future. She's just Norman Reedus delivering packages.
So, but focusing on like Gideon a little bit. I'm a huge Gideon stan. I love Gideon. I asked Brian if we could name our kid like Gideon at one point. I just think the name is dope too. He was like, no.
You're
I don't ever
named
get what I
after
want.
Ramona's most abusive ex.
Damn.
Well, it's
an
like they don't
interesting
even
choice.
touch on his true evil nature. Like the comics, he takes his 7 ex-girlfriend or 6 ex-girlfriends, cryogenically freezes them, and he planned on putting Ramona in cryogenic sleep so that way he could individually, like, unfreeze them so they would date him.
And
That was
This
his
is
whole
the-
goal,
this
was
is
so
the
that he would
In
the
freeze them and then he
comics-
would date them again.
he's also invented a glow that goes around your head that traps you there, leaving you unable to express your emotions. And that's how he made his billions.
Oh my god. Oh my
Gideon
God.
is an evil mastermind, and what was kind of cool about this whole Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is that, despite the fact that we have the what if, like, Scott died before ever facing these exes, we have, like, Ramona going and healing, you think that there's so much bait and switch in this show that it's like, oh, Gideon has lost his billions, his empire, everything, and he ends up going to the one person who is evil both as a live action person, Audrey Plaza. Murder.
What's her deal?
Julie just
Julie-
hates Scott. She's a
Julie hates
hater.
everybody. Julie's not a people person, but she's also very popular amongst people. But at the same time, she doesn't like. Yeah, she hates Scott. She hates Scott. And she likes Ramona. I don't know, but apparently in this alternate version, she knew Gideon way back when, and they started dating,
And
and
he
so
was-
Gideon has a new whole, instead of freezing all his exes, actually has an ex who finds that his evil side is actually kind of hot. So he has a new motivation.
To each their own.
Which is kind of what Gideon wanted in the first place, is that he was like, oh, I don't want them to break up with me. I want them to be with me forever. So I'll just freeze them after they've broken up
this,
with me.
this tracks on your toxic love.
I love them toxic boys.
Just so I can understand why you would like it
Well,
so much.
what?
Look, he's going around and he's like bumming it, and she's like kind of bored with him. Like, what are you gonna do now? He's got no motivation. He's just sitting at home eating like what? Like Pringles and
I
stuff?
loved him and Lucas becoming unemployed bros.
Yeah.
Their day at the house was such a fun day.
Yeah.
They built a skate ramp.
You ever just play paintball indoors in a house that you don't own?
Poor Julie.
I left for 90 minutes.
I love the one that everyone keeps playing when she like leaves the house. He's like, "I'll miss you," and she's like, "I'll effing miss you too." And I'm like, "Oh, that's my
That's couple goals.
that is my couple goal." But I love that it was like you thought that he lost everything, but in fact it was because of Julie. He retains his evil self, and she helps better his evil plans. She's with him.
She
Thick and
enables.
thin. She enables, which is great. First off, because now she left the whole series. It was because of her, and now the series is left with an open ending enough that if they wanted to revisit this, they could do it. But they don't have to.
But you would like them to.
I
would-
would love
yeah,
the misadventures of Gideon and Julie.
Yeah, I would love to spend more time in good old snowy Toronto.
Yeah.
It's such a not a warm show. I would say it feels so inviting. The world, it's like you feel like you're part of them. You're watching everything grow. You're watching them just have like all this.
There was one, this is such a silly thing, but there was a shot in the first episode of just Scott kind of walking across the street, kind of funny. And it just stuck with me. I was like, oh, I like this. I like that they're taking the time to just have like goofy little like slice of life anime moments. And yeah,
Wallace. Let's just talk
Wallace.
about Wallace.
She's talking about Wallace.
The friend who owns the video store or works in the video one.
Kim.
Yeah, we didn't-
I love Kim.
I felt bad for her because they trashed the video store. I was like, oh.
You should feel even worse for her in the comic book. She gets kidnapped by the Katayanagi twins just so they can lure Scott out. She goes through a lot, to be fair.
I just kind of felt bad. Like, you trashed the entire place. That's her
To be
life.
fair,
Going
she
down
just
the
works
drain.
there. It's not her business.
Oh.
She just works there. But fair. I
I
like that
just
they
felt
actually
so
had
bad.
battles in actual places that could get damaged. Versus the movie where they were like, oh, let's just kind of do it in the street or something. I mean, to be fair, they did trash that cafe, but that was like one out of the multiple fights that they had there.
Yeah. One of the funny parts with Wallace is like I love the part where they're shooting the scene where they're like the three of them, like, what was it supposed to be, like, where they're gonna walk into the theater, but the couple keeps on like kissing and it goes, God, and it's like you see all the takes and then Wallace goes, I have an idea.
Oh, Envy and Todd.
Yeah, and I was like, and how the director just looks haggard. He's like,
It's like,
tired. He goes, Wallace, I have an idea. And they kiss, and that's what just leads Todd down the
it's my
That one
favorite
was
part of the
funny,
anime
though.
was just the Todd falling in love with Wallace.
It's like, let's go read some lines.
I love that he got
Yeah.
a tattoo of him. on his
Read lines in the
stomach.
trailer.
Yeah, every time Todd says anything, he's like, lines in the trailer?
Lines in the trailer. It's just the tattoo that was immediate.
Oh,
my
that
God.
got me.
He's like, I love him so much.
The delivery, too, of just, picturing Roman Roy, as Wallace. Just the delivery was just perfect every single time. It was just great. Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
Wallace is quintessential to the Scott Pilgrim series. You can't have Scott Pilgrim without sassy Wallace walking around.
I'll admit when I first saw, because like I've seen some of the film, but like when I saw the anime, I forgot that Wallace and Scott are just roommates for a split second. I thought they were dating.
Roommates.
I mean, they do sleep in the same bed, and
So with
Everything is Wallace's.
roommates.
I was going to say, I don't know about roommates as much as Scott is just a squatter.
Yeah.
I love that they kept true to, like, they kept the scene from the movie where it's like, and in the comics where you see like a tour of just the single bedroom apartment or the studio where it's just like the sign saying Wallace's, Scott's jacket, Wallace's. It's like everything is just. I did like also that they modernized this a little bit more. I like that they ripped on Netflix just a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
It's like Netflix DVDs don't exist anymore. I think they just got rid of that.
I didn't realize that people used to do door-to-door deliveries of Netflix DVDs.
Oh, yeah.
Brian's
yeah.
done it once and he owed a lot of money on a DVD that we lost.
Yep.
Because that's why I was trying to figure out what time this was. Like, when is this taking
Well,
place?
if I remember correctly, it was like an additional add-on to your monthly fee.
Yeah.
And so you could request a DVD, and you could literally keep it for forever. But you
Now-
were going to keep getting charged, right?
yeah, no, yeah. Originally,
Yeah,
it was
originally-
just it was the DVDs and the streaming was a bonus,
Yeah.
and then you could keep it as long as you just paid the subscription. You could keep the DVD.
Yeah.
So now I remember when Netflix was strictly just DVDs and not streaming. And my mom and I used to get DVDs delivered from Netflix to our house, and then we would ship them back.
Yeah.
You know who we haven't talked about?
Thanks
Really?
to Netflix, we don't have
Matthew.
Blockbuster anymore.
I love that he's
So-
just a theater kid.
Yeah.
He
just
also plays Scott Pilgrim in the play.
Yes, he does.
Everyone's playing Scott except for Scott. We haven't really talked about Matthew, considering he's basically the main component of
As
this
he says
whole thing.
many times, he's the main character.
He will be the main character. So Matthew Patel, and they did bring up, like, what happened with Ramona and Matthew's relationship. He was just the non-white boy on the team at her school, and she went after that because all the jocks wanted her, and he was different. Except for he could shoot fireballs. I always loved that I always kind of hated that they never put in the movie the dance battle. that Scott has with all his friends against
Yeah.
Matthew and Sal. They have a Bollywood dance-off as part of their fight with Matthew. I love the demon hipster chicks. They were one of my favorite designs. They're so simple, yet they're just a bunch of punk girls that kind of look like Ramona with demon wings. And I loved that they gave them personalities in this one. That they're just like his little cheerleader mask, like, you can do it, Matthew. And I'm like,
I liked at the end when they were like, boss, they were going to blow up the theater.
They had their little security outfits on at one point, so I was like, oh, they're so adorable. I love them so much.
Did anyone else wonder how Ramona hasn't lost her hair yet with all the dye jobs that she
That
does?
was actually
And
Can I just say, I loved that little ritual scene every episode of her.
It was so nice because she
getting
changes
a new
her
hairstyle.
hair like every week.
I was like, she's
But yeah,
changed
her hair is
design.
so dead.
Yeah.
It's like, I was like, this hair has to...
That was one of the things I was going to bring up too.
Which I know isn't the point, but as I was watching, like, my God, her hair must be so damaged, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, like watching her apply, then shampoo.
There was fan art I skimmed across this morning where it was literally like a realistic version of like Ramona and Scott, and it's just her like bald at this point because it's all gone. It's all gone. Little blue strands here and there.
Well, that's a good segue to Ramona. And
Yes.
I would be one of those people that would instantly fall in love with Ramona Flowers.
She's
like,
mysterious.
She just, yeah, there's something about her. I also love the actress that plays her in the movie. I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead is one of the most underrated actresses in Hollywood. It also helps that I also have a crush on her too. So yeah,
If
I'm
you're
gonna
watching,
keep a crush counter.
yeah.
No, Ramona is a very interesting, somewhat complex character in which you don't really get to see much of her complexity within the movie, other than the fact
Agreed,
that we
yeah.
understand that she broke up with these people for reasons, but she didn't break up with them in good ways.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, she created this league, which technically Gideon created this league of 7 X's. Clearly, he's been in the game of just creating X's.
Much like
collections.
Scott, Ramona has trouble facing her problems.
Yeah.
Except Ramona's a tad bit more mature.
Yes.
Than Scott is in any way. But it was interesting to see how one of the major themes of Scott Pilgrim has always been like communication is incredibly important in a healthy relationship. Scott doesn't communicate to Knives that he's fallen in love with somebody else or that he needs to break up with his fake high school girlfriend in order to date Ramona. He doesn't tell Ramona that he's currently in a relationship with another woman. He doesn't really talk about his relationship with Envy Adams and why that mattered. In the comics, I know there's an issue with an old past childhood friend, Lisa, I think her name was, which is never touched upon
There's
in the movie.
there's a great thing in the comics where all of Scott's memories are just presented as like goofy crayon drawings of just, and he's just like, I don't know why things went wrong. And then in the comics, there's Nega Scott, who at one point merges with Scott, and Scott finally faces like, oh, I did bad things. Okay, I remember now.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned that he leaves Toronto to go train, and that's like Nega Scott has more of an important context in the comics than the goofy thing they kind of put in the movie. They made it more goofy.
Yeah.
And instead of gaining the sword of self-respect that was in the movie, he gains the sword of understanding, which is very different because his eyes are finally open to everything. He sees it all. But it's interesting to see how takes the whole... His older self still just has not learned that...
I like Ramona shows up. Even older Ramona shows up, and she's just like, why? It was 10 years.
It was 10 years.
You could have texted me. Like,
Yeah.
He just kind of ran off. They both have a habit of running away from horror, like, their feelings, how they're feeling, instead of confronting an issue, when all they needed to do all along was work together on things, and things would have been fine.
I also like what I liked about the ending was that Ramona chooses herself,
yes.
and she acknowledges, okay, when she has all the flashbacks, that she is part of the problem. She's not guilt-free.
Yeah.
And she zaps older Wallace back to his room. She's like, I'm in a room. But maybe there's a chance that they can sort of repair things. But I kind of liked how she chooses herself. And she finally acknowledges, I'm part of the problem.
Yeah.
Which is great for this series because we finally get a look at Ramona finally figuring out and confronting all the exes and being like, hey.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
kind of a person.
Yeah.
I think I liked Ramona more in this than I did in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard because, like, in the movie, in the comics, because we're seeing things from more of a Scott point of view, that it's like, we still see her as this mysterious entity, but also as a toxic entity because of it. It's like she's creating some problem, she's jumping to conclusions. Scott isn't helpful, and it makes you kind of feel like this is just a bad relationship. But it's interesting seeing him take off. The reason why things are so bad is because they never.
And I know this isn't important, but it's more for me. Is it explained how these people have their powers in the comics, or is it just like, oh, okay?
No,
That's just how Toronto is.
Oh,
other than Todd being explained because he's a vegan. That's the only reason.
Yeah, Scott is just the greatest fighter in the province.
Oh, okay.
He used to fight a lot of people in high school.
Okay.
It's just how he's always been. He's a little delinquent.
Thank you for asking that question, Simona, because I had no
Scott
idea.
is just a very good fighter. He was fighting in high school. When he met Lisa, literally is like the reason he got transferred to one of the schools is because he had a brawl with somebody, and then he continued to have brawls with people, and that's how he met Kim, and blah blah blah. And then he got transferred again.
Ramona knows how to use subspace. Canadians just kind of aren't in on that.
You have to
It's all in
expand
her
your mind.
bag. Like, she carries the bag, and she can open portals in her bag, right?
Well,
Her bag is
No.
she can
different.
just like skate through it too. So you
She
know,
basically
like
goes through people's
that's how
heads.
she meets Scott.
Oh,
Yeah, the
okay.
portals are basically like people's like inner world at that
Oh,
point.
okay,
So
okay.
that's how she's able to traverse. It's just something that she's able to do is traverse space and time, but that's something.
Oh, okay.
And that's what makes her the best delivery person ever. Amazon, get on it.
Opening up portals. Can you imagine?
But yeah.
Amazon?
I think Roxy, she doesn't have power.
Roxy's a ninja.
Roxy's
She's
a
half ninja. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And her sword can turn into a whip
That's
in the
cool.
comics, which is pretty dope. But yeah, she
cool.
was just trained by ninjas.
She taught Ramona about subspace.
Yeah, she got it. Roxy's cool. Besides that, Matthew, but they really don't go into why everyone has power. They just do. I think it's just for the sake of making, like, you know.
Yeah, it's just the gag of what if.
He's dating. He's got to fight the seven
Yeah,
deadly exes.
what if your girlfriend's ex was a Street Fighter character and you had to do fights with them?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be as much fun if they were just like blam, 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 blam. It doesn't seem like the Brian Lee O'Malley style without having some mysticism coming in here.
And it's just video game logic and like.
Exactly. Video game, anime.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Awesome.
some anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like the villain being older Scott. I thought, I don't know, for whatever reason that
Another
landed
bait
with
and
me.
switch.
Yeah.
Who knew?
But it was younger Scott that brought the script to young Neil, right? It was younger Scott. It was the
It was
No, it's Ramona.
Ramona.
Ramona brought the script.
Yeah.
Ramona
Oh.
wrote
Yeah,
the script to try to bring awareness.
Oh,
of the
for some reason I thought it
situation.
was young. Okay, never mind.
Scott was just looking at things through the robot.
Oh, he was the one spying with the robot.
Yeah.
Okay, That was so fun. That was funny.
Who's also a bro.
I love that robot.
Yeah.
I like that he had a Dreamcast sticker on him in the future. He was just a chill guy.
The Katayanagi twins.
I want a
always
little
felt like they
action
needed more
figure
time.
of him.
Katayanagi twins are an interesting duo. They don't have a music battle in the comics. They actually fight Scott with robots. They send a bunch of robots at him. I always felt like they were kind of like the lesser of the exes. To be fair, they had a weird thing going on with Ramona where she was two-timing with the brothers. To be fair, they were wronged in that situation a bit more.
Though, I don't know. They were
That's
both
true.
her TAs. And she, like, it's sketchy. It's mad sketchy.
You fall in love with who you fall in love with.
Yeah,
That's a
Yeah.
no.
Oh, wow.
That's
Wow.
a TA thing. I don't know. She's an adult at that period, so, or was she?
Yeah, but it's still not good to have
It's
a
not a good
relationship
image,
with
yeah.
like your professor, like, you know.
Teaching assistant.
They're still grading you.
Almost professor.
Still grading you.
Almost professor.
Still grading you. Still grading you.
Chicago grades. So no, that is not a. I do not condone the dating of professors or TAs for the sake of grades.
Glad we got that clear.
I do not condone that. But if you genuinely like pull Gilmore Girls and you just kind of like fall in love with each other, no, it's okay. I don't know. Then again, they were toxic too.
I liked Super Ramona.
Super
I-
Ramona was such a cool design. This
Just like
ethereal-
Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Yeah.
3, that's right, 3, yeah. I love that older Scott doesn't remember these things.
I did like that. I did like the design when she merges.
Yeah.
That was kind of pretty. She just zaps him back to the room.
So Ramona learns self-respect. She got the sword of self-respect,
Yeah.
not of understanding fully, but you know that's Scott's sword.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, are there?
I would love to see a season 2 if it happens. If not, I'm happy what we've got. But come on, I want to see. I want to see Scott and Ramona against Gideon and
Julie.
Julie.
Envy.
No,
I'd like to see
Julie.
the fights. And Julie. Oh, that's right, and Julie. Yes.
Yep, I agree.
Envy seems
Yeah.
chill now
Yeah.
in the show.
Yeah,
She's chill.
She was hanging with Sexy
upset,
Mom.
and she's still dating. She's trying to make things work, man. She's trying to
Todd goes back to being a
de-brainwash
vegan.
from Wallace because Wallace is clearly just the best thing.
I like that all Todd had to do to get the vegan powers was just eat a piece of broccoli. That was it.
Yeah.
What was anyone else
Chicken
kind of
parmesan
grossed out when
vegan.
he's just putting all that butter on the popcorn, just like mountains and mountains?
Yeah,
Wow.
double that and then
I
you're good.
really like
Oh, like God, I was like,
There's a lot of butter.
I like butter on popcorn.
I like butter too, but that was, you know.
just like
That was too
Boy
much.
was depressed.
It went over the line for you.
Boy was depressed.
I
Boy
understand.
Boy mixed up feelings that shouldn't have been there, despite the fact that the boundary was already there. Boy just went and fell in love by himself.
There were sparks. Wallace just couldn't admit it.
No, Wallace had sparks with his boy at the end.
Oh yeah, right.
The
yeah.
real sparks. That's what Wallace is looking for. He's looking for the sparks.
No, Wallace was not looking for the sparks. He was shocked. He was like, wait, sparks are real?
Look, he just didn't write his sparks. But Todd, I think would have sparks with anybody because of how he kind of is. Anybody who gives him attention that he kind of wants or feels loved in some way, I feel like Todd would just be like, Todd just sets himself up for failure. Todd is a forceful.
Tricked him.
Wallace did not trick him.
I'm gonna die on that hill. Wallace tricked him. That's all.
Wallace was the most honest character in Scott Pilgrim. He literally was like, I know I'm better than everybody.
Can we also talk about when Todd saw
I
all the
know.
places they kissed? They kissed the toilet.
We really didn't need to know that. I like when Wallace's stunt doubles are fighting against.
And they called it quits when he like insults them, like just is this we can take anything but like mental trauma. I was like, God, leave him alone. It was just- that one was funny. So we can take anything but not criticism like that.
Wallace is.
How does Wallace have friends?
Because he's
People
cool.
appreciate honesty.
He's not.
He's incredibly honest.
Yeah.
He's the one that in the movie, literally, he tries very hard to get Scott to admit that to tell Ramona that he loves, you know.
And think about it, he can't be that bad. I mean, he does let Scott stay with him. You know what I
And
mean?
he does
Like-
tell him that
like,
everything
yeah.
is Wallace's and that everything comes out of Wallace's pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, while he might seem abrupt and stuff like that, there's obviously a caring side to him.
He's a good friend. He still sticks with them to the
Yeah.
end. And he wouldn't be helping
Just-
Ramona try to find Scott if he didn't care.
I
Even though if Harry's own journey.
I liked Ramona getting to be Columbo.
Yeah, I mean, he's like Detective Pikachu.
Oh my God.
So, Scott Pilgrim takes off. Ratings, what are we rating it out of?
I give it a good. I give it. I'm a harsh grader. Come back to me. Come back to me.
I'm giving it 4.5 sex bombs.
Out of 5 sex bombs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're 4 to 5. Okay.
I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 sex bombs.
I'll be able to say that. But I go no.
There's still 2 other people.
I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
It's a failing grade.
Sex bombs.
So I know what I'm about to say is going to contradict it. I would probably give it 2 because while there were funny moments, I wasn't as invested in what was going on, to be perfectly honest. I mean, there were a lot of funny moments, but 2.5, I think that's what I would give it. I don't know if I would watch it again, if I'm being honest.
Are you still thinking?
Based on my 2 minor complaints. A 4.7 out of 5 sex bombs.
It's so close to 5. Okay, what?
It is because my complaints were minor. I would have liked to have actually. There's a whole concert scene in Takes Off with Clash at Demon Head, but instead of having Envy sing the song, it's just the crowd singing the song. And I would have loved to have seen, one of the major aspects that people love about the movie was that whole scene of Envy coming on stage and singing her song. I would have loved to hear, like, a new version of the song, like, on stage, to have that thing. And I understand, like, when artists do that, like, you've been to a concert and they make you, like, the words, sing the song. But it's like, just sing the song. Just sing the song. Give me the concert. Sing the song. Make it a little long. Just give me the song. Instead, she sings, like, at Scott's funeral, and it's a new song and everything, but it's not really her band. It's just Envy singing. I want to see Clash at
Okay,
Demon
that
Head.
was
She makes the funeral all about her, which,
She did, which
yeah,
is very enviable.
hysterical. I
is the
imagine
best
you
intro.
die and Lady Gaga rolls up. Like,
It's one of her best intros. Every time she comes in with an intro, she has such presence, and she just the feathers, one piece. She is a powerhouse diva. But I wanted more from Clash at Demon Head with the scenes that they were in. And I also wish I could have gotten maybe one more episode to expand on certain things. But those are 2 very minor complaints, considering this is a brand new, Brian Lee O'Malley worked very closely with this, everything.
I love that, a creator going back to something he did a long time ago at this point. It started in 2004. That's almost 20 years. And just having a different, fresh perspective on it and being like, let's look at this a little differently. Let's expand this. I like that a lot.
One thing I mentioned, this was before we were recording, the awkward moment where Scott approaches Ramona for the first time. And I thought how real that could be, where he's, struggling to find a topic, and then, he just sat, nope, and just, leaves, and she's, staring after him, what just happened? I thought that was funny, just, sidles up and goes, so, what does he ask her if she likes?
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Did you know that in the year the first Sonic the Hedgehog anime came out, there were actually 2.
Yeah. One was
anime playing side by side. Not many people knew that.
And she just
have you
just
ever?
staring.
Have y'all ever started a conversation like that, where it's did you know? It's great.
No,
I don't do that at parties. I'm not.
No,
I'm trying to not to be Scott.
I don't know. I was at a bar once, and there was this. I had a bunch of friends who knew this guy. He was at the bar. He was a very nice guy, and we had the best conversation. It all started with basically it was I was on my phone and he noticed I was looking at an old school anime thing, and he goes, "Oh yes, I see. Did you know?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know." I was like, "Oh, are you a fan of it?" It starts the best conversations when you're a dork, a nerd, a geek, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start conversations sometimes. Just eavesdrop a little bit. I'm not insulted by that. My phone's out in the open. You can see it. It's might as well start a conversation on something you saw on my page. It's cool with me. It's a good time. I'll go to parties. I like to party. But yeah, 4.7 sex with bombs, just because of my minor, teeny tiny complaints. I hope one day that they can give us what fans really want, is a faithful adaptation, animated adaptation of the comics themselves, because it's such a good story. It's such a fun story, and the animation they had in this whole thing was so polished and true to the original designs that it's like it shows that it can be done, and that it can be great, and that you'll have like tons of people coming in, old fans, new fans, you know, bring them back and introduce the world of Scott Pilgrim again, and it can live on. And that's something I would like to see go through. I think Science Saru, the animation company, was at first an interesting pick. I thought that it wasn't going to be like as good as it was because of Science Saru. If you are an avid watcher of Caffeinated Librarians, you'll know Science Saru from many of the movies we've discussed, including Inuo, Lou Over the Wall. There's clearly another one in there. Oh yeah, Night of Short Walk on Girl. Known for their simplistic animation that allows them to do crazy things. Mm-hmm. But this one didn't feel like a Science Saru anime production. This felt like a whole new identity. Everything was so methodically and well thought out, so true to its source material. It had so much love behind this production that you could really feel that they really catered to what the fans would have wanted from a series. And so I will give it like one of the highest ratings. Since this is considered an anime, it is up for the running as one of the best animes to come out this year.
Wow.
By many fans so far, but we'll see about that. I don't think it'll be really that up there, but
one thing I just want to add, I really loved the ending, using a nice little chiptune version of God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. I was like, oh my god, they're doing Boogie Nights.
They also used some of the scenes from the video game in the show too, like the kissing scene with the heart flying. That's in the video game when they tell the story. They meet and they go around in a circle with the hearts in the background. I thought that was a good touch. So, any other final thoughts we got on this? All right. And I think with that, tell us what you think. Did you see it? Are you a Scott Pilgrim fan? You can check out the books and the movie here at the Mahopac Public Library, or even if you're not in the Mahopac area, in your local library sector. Give it a read, give it a watch, come back and tell us what you think. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Bye.